So yes, can we bring Adam Azor from Sportradar and Ben Peppi from Smaller League to come and have a chat about how we power these cultural moments at speed and scale. Gents, can you hear me above the din of everything? Great. Well, I think what we should do is kick off as people filter in. Is that okay?
Let's do it.
Very good. So, Adam, Ben, before we get going, do you want to introduce yourselves and what it is you do and why you're on the attention stage?
Sure. Well, firstly, it's great to be here, and it's great to be alongside Ben, and I think is one of the coolest sports properties around at the moment. So I'm Adam. I'm the Executive Vice President Global Marketing at Sportradar. We are the world's leading sports technology company. So if you're interacting with sport pretty much in any way, you're probably interacting with us. So why we're here is we're the ones that are helping brands, people, entities connect with sports fans through technology.
And Ben?
Cool. Yeah, no, likewise. Great to be here, so thank you for having me. I'm Ben. I'm the Director of Partnerships at Baller League. So very much here to usher in a new era of football. I'm very excited to be talking about how we are using our platform as a new rights holder in the sports market to do exactly that and be alongside Adam and help to give you guys an understanding as to how data plays a really important part of that and other platforms that we've been utilizing that have enabled us to have the initial and early success that we have had over the last 3 to 6 months.
Very good. And now, listen, as Adam says, if you're dealing with sports, you're probably dealing somewhere with Sportradar. But tell us a little bit about Baller League. What makes Baller League special? It's because it ain't normal football, is it? It ain't your granddad's football.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a good question and a nice starting point. So, for those of you that haven't seen, Baller League is it's a new 6-a-side football league that we launched in Germany in 2024, and we launched in the UK in 2025. And what it is essentially taking football back to the root cause of why we all fell in love with it, right? Which is that we went out on the street as kids. We played 3v3, 4v4, next goal wins. You mentioned jumpers for goalposts earlier. And the way that we have managed to kind of gain the traction that we have is we have a very unique distribution model and strategy as to how we bring sport and football into this new era. So imagine kind of the NFL franchise style model of having team owners. Our team owners are some of the most high profile content creators, celebrities, football legends globally. And our players are these elite level 6-a-side footballers, recently retired pros who are there to give the younger generation and kids a sport that they want to be able to watch on platforms that they live on, right? YouTube, Twitch, mobile, and so on and so forth. So that's what we are.
So it sounds like Baller League is all about sort of cultural capital and understanding how cultural capital is different now than it was, 100 years ago. Adam, I mean, your company is all about cultural capital. What do you mean by that, then?
So I'm not going to worry too much about defining what cultural capital is and more focus on why it's important.
Okay.
I'd love to get to the whys. And there's a stat I learned last week, which I would normally do some audience interaction here, but it's a little bit awkward to do it. I'm going to share the stat around the average sports fan age is 47. And I don't know why that
I'm the average.
I don't know why that shocked me, but it did shock me because I would think it went younger. And if we start thinking about what that actually means, right, so that's Generation X, right? If we forget about Generation X, so that's 45 to 60. Now their spending is 15 trillion. 15.2 trillion spending power. Now millennials is 15 trillion as well. 15.2 trillion, they're the largest group. Gen Z is millennials is 2.5 trillion, Gen X is 5 trillion. Gen Z is 450 billion. Now that's all sizable, right? Yeah. We would be happy with any of that. But the reason I want to talk about the age is let's remember who a sports fan actually is in totality. Uh-huh. And if you think about Gen Z, as Ben will go into, they are a completely different animal. They interact with sport in a different way. Only 18% of them have been to a live sport in the last year. Madness, right? They like short-form content. They like highlights. They're not watching live broadcasts. They're completely different. But when you then think about sport in totality, that you understand why sport is bucking every single trend in traditional media. Traditional media right now is 25% in the last 10 years down on TV ratings.
Right.
Sport is flat in the UK. It's 3% down. In the
It's
US,
only 3%.
only 3% down.
Whereas everything else
is down 25%. So sport in the US is now 90 million. It's streamed by a person, and that's up from 57 million a few years ago. So it's actually grown in terms of sport streaming. The reason why that's important is sport is unique in immediacy, right? Sport is the last bastion of the fixed occasion in a world where everything is on demand. And the reason why that's important from brands is the ability to harness is vital if you're driving outcome.
Yeah.
Now, if you think about, there was a study by Magna recently, 75% of consumers said they demand and expect activation within a week of a cultural moment, within a week, right? That's your timeline. And they've also found out there's a 23% increase on purchase intent if you succeed in doing that. So coming back to why cultural capital is important, sport is your gateway to cultural capital, and if you are a brand, you can activate driving purchase intent off the back of it.
But and Ben, I mean, we were talking there not just that sport is cultural capital, but speed is important as well. I mean, this it's the speed that seems to be half of what Adam's talking about.
For sure, and I'd go one step further and say it's not a week, it's actually 24 hours. So one of the things that we saw with Baller League in our first season alone, so we run a season across 12 weeks, and within that 12-week period we had over 550 million short-form views on our social handles from content. And we'll go into the reasons as to why we were able to do that and the moments that enabled those things to happen vicariously through the talent that we had or the platform that we gave to the people that were involved in Baller League. But actually, it's the speed at which you need to operate. So on site, on game nights, and you've seen it now with the Premier League, they're now starting to introduce pitch-side interviews and subs being interviewed and all this type of stuff. And so what we did is that we made sure that we had our social teams, our content teams, and our brands that were partnered with us having field-side, pitch-side reporters, such that when one of our players scores a goal, and there's a celebrity sat there courtside and they get up and do a dance together, that we have a video editing and publishing platform that these brands and us can have people in a war room behind our stadium, behind our arena, clipping it up, and it's out there less than 5 minutes later, right? So
that's not a week or a day. That's
it's minutes, right? But that's what's so critically important. And I think the step before that for brands is not actually the ability to take that moment. It's being ready for the moment, right? It's being ready for the moment in a place where you know these moments are going to happen. So for us, if I think as to two of our partners alone, one of them said to us they want to become the most culturally relevant brand in the UK. And that's why they partnered with Baller League, right? Another one, Pepsi, they'd never been on the front of a UK football shirt before. They had probably a huge amount of opportunity to be able to do that. So
can you imagine how many people have gone around from Tottenham or from Arsenal saying, "Oh, we can sell you that," and they must have said no again and again and again.
Yeah.
But they said yes for you.
Yeah, for sure. And it's about, there's a number of things that feed into that. So I mentioned before, we have kind of our managers who are kind of very high profile people across multiple categories. So within Baller League, if you imagine a Venn diagram, we have the kind of the football legends, the John Terrys, the Alan Shearers, of Luis Figos of the world. And then on the music side, you have Dave. From a culture perspective, you have Clint. If any of you haven't heard of Clint or his streetwear brand Cortez, it's one of the fastest growing streetwear brands in the UK. So it's combining those people.
I'm a guy who would
don't worry, I don't feel very cool when I'm there either. And then the streamers and the content creators we have, Angry Gin, Sharky, Mini Minter, KSI is our president. So it's finding this cultural hotbed of merging these worlds together, which to Adam's point around Gen Z, millennials, what they want, it's not that they don't have attention spans, it's the fact that they need to be consuming product that catches their attention, that lives in a place where they are then able to consume it. They're watching Kai Cenat in streams for 6-7 hours a day. They're playing on PlayStation games for 7, 8, 9 hours a day, right? The attention is there. It's just making sure there's a product that they can consume that is exciting and engaging enough that post that is there on their social feeds and it's there being clipped up everywhere.
This seems, frankly, gents, exhausting. And if you have to have answers out and you have to have content out minutes afterwards, you have to have enormous amounts of preparation. So, you saying that Adam, is there a tech? I presume this is what you. Then how does the technology help us actually deliver that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so look, I think exactly what Ben said is 100% right, and it's a wonderful example of being right embedded in culture. And I think, look, the principles of harnessing this has come back to the simple principles of marketing, right? Art and science.
Uh-huh.
What Ben is talking about is the art, the creativity, the culture, the partnerships, the right territories. The bit to really deploy and take advantage of that is the science, which is the technology, right? And especially thinking about from a brand perspective, sport is global, but now through technology have the ability to activate hyper-personalized on a local level with the right tech. And the immediacy, as Ben was talking about, is absolutely critical. So yes, it is exhausting, but not if you have the right technology to enable it, right? So let me tell you how technology has been fueled with data through storytelling for the last 20 years, right? Historically, it's people, right? Ultimately, it's data journalists out 24/7, and we've got thousands of them around the world watching sport. Good job if you can get it, right? Wonderful job. Where it is now moving, and for the last 5 years, what we've been building is computer vision in sport. Not sure how much of you know what computer vision is. It's the same technology as driverless cars, right? So it's how you extrapolate data from the camera feed. And that is really what we've been doing over the last 5 years. So now, when we're capturing data, we are capturing it from not the human eye, but from broadcast. Now, it's Wimbledon week at the moment. So imagine Alcaraz and Djokovic are playing. Previously, you could only see what the human eye was capturing.
Yeah.
Right? With computer vision, it's not just saying what the points are. It's saying, well, what angle is the racket being held at? Right? What speed is Djokovic moving over it? And then it's crunching in real time with AI and computer learning. It's the predictive modeling of what's going to happen, because it's correlating 20 years of temperature, 20 years of data. So that's all the technology that we're doing. And in real time, that is funneled into every piece of technology that we control and distribute. So that's how fans are getting that data and the stats. That's how sports betting are setting odds. That's going into the sports performance. So that's the tech that we enable through organizations. And where we've now recently moved into is the ability to implement that into marketing.
Yeah.
So into real time, we can deploy that programmatically, channel agnostic, digital out of home, program on demand, real time data, deep data in storytelling. And the benefit you have of the immediacy on scale is the effectiveness. And we're talking extreme differences between what is not contextual in real time compared to things that's old school. So that's where the power and benefit of technology is coming in, of brands to harness it. Quite simply, if you are not doing this as a brand, you are losing. And nobody wants to lose in sport.
So we need to have, cultural moments have a shelf life. You need to be there at the right time. You need to be able to act on the right time. You see lots and lots of agencies producing content or producing marketing, instantly afterwards. But it sounds like an enormous effort. With Sportradar, because of the sort of the AI-powered data sets, it gives you the insights and the data you need to be able to act in that sort of near real time, to be part of the culture. Could you give us some examples of the sort of stories that you can tell, and how Baller League can benefit from these sorts of sort of real-time insights? And
sure, I think Ben will have some really interesting stuff within the Baller League, but I'll give you a brand example.
Okay. Yeah, that's
so one of our partners in the US is NASCAR, and actually everyone's kind of forgetting about NASCAR with the rise of Formula One, but they're a really interesting, innovative business, and we've actually been building with them to build real-time positional data, driver data, and they've actually opened that up for us to then build it into essentially our DSP technology. So I can't say the brand, but it's one of their sponsors that's done it, and they experimented with, in real time, implementing the positional data, the real-time data points of a live race into the contextual advertising in real time, in every single channel. Over 100%, 107% increase in click-throughs ratio off of that, compared to the non-real-time data.
And just to paint a picture for us there, so this is digital advertising.
Yeah.
sort of banner ads and video ads.
Whole sorts of formats.
Making use, and the actual creative itself changes.
Yes, dynamically.
Dynamically in relation to the race.
In relation to what is actually happening during the race, automated. So everyone is setting up the framework, the templates, and all those data points are getting automated into it in real time. Then the other thing around it is, depending on the mechanism you're dealing with, depending if it's account-based login, you can even go one step further and personalize.
Okay.
All real time.
All real time. Yeah. I mean, when you hear, Ben, I mean, you've been working with these guys for a while, and you're talking about how would Baller League be able to use this sort of technology, or what are you doing to make use of these real-time insights?
So I think from a kind of traditional standpoint, what we try to create as a rights holder is the most elite level sporting product that we can. So alongside, the thing that's so unique about Baller League is that we merge these worlds of like traditional sport being brought into the modern era and giving our brands a platform to be able to show up in a right way. And what we pride ourselves on is not having the red tape that you typically associate with traditional rights holders in sport. So I'll give you a few examples of that. Like, all of the brands that partner with us have hero assets in their kind of sponsorship and partnership deals with us that enable them to show up in a way that you just would never get in other sports, right? Yeah. Philips have a barber shop in our arena. Foot Locker have a sneaker room. Things like that. So I think from a kind of pure cultural standpoint, it's that ability to show up. And then from an insight and a data perspective, to create the most elite sporting product, but also the longevity to our business, we need to leverage data, we need to leverage insight, because ultimately what we're all about is giving a platform and a showcase back to these players that fell by the wayside, right? So our MVP of season 1 in the UK, Kazai Sterling, made an appearance as Spurs in the Champions League. He then dropped off the system, thousands of these stories, right? He was now the MVP of Ball League Season 1. Probably won't play in Ball League in Season 2 because he'll be signed up. We've got players that have now got trials at QPR and other championship clubs and so on. So for us, by having giving insight from a pure sporting perspective, one, incredibly valuable to us as a rights holder to be able to partner with certain brands. And then two, for us to create what we want to do long term. Small-sided football is the most played sport in the world, which no one knows, right? Like, football is the most played sport, the most followed sport. What part of football is the most played part of it? Small-sided. No one has ever commercialized that. So if we want to create this ecosystem around a sport to do all the things that we want to do on a global stage, we need to leverage all the things that other traditional rights holders do really well, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to merge the traditional with the new to enable us to create the best product we can, but also the most reputable and respected product. But then for brands, they know they get the traditional element to be able to leverage the data through guys like Sportradar, but then also to enable us to grow the platform and profile for our players as well.
Okay, so we're beginning to wrap up now, and so we've got just another couple of questions. One of the things that we pride ourselves here at MadFest and on the attention stage is keeping it real here. So I said, this sounds like a lot of hard work, a lot of preparation to get in this, and it's only through technology that you can solve the challenges and live out the opportunity here. So can you just start then, what are the biggest problems? I mean, the vision is fantastic, but the technology allows you to do that. But what are the biggest problems you faced, and how have you overcome those things there to keep it real for our audience?
I think Ben said something which is super important, and from a rights holder perspective, and that's a really key area. And we're partnered with a lot of the big players in the world, so NBA, NHL, ATP are all long-term partners of Sportradar. And the thing which we always have discussions about, we think about this exciting future we're going into with technology and AI disrupting everything. Something super foundational, which the Ball League has really sat on, is first-party data.
Yeah.
Right? First-party data is essentially your gold mine to the future. Right? And as a rights holder, the ability to harness and capture first-party data is something that should be in everyone's strategy. Because that's the only way you can do true hyper-personalization, deep personalizations with deep first-party data. You can still deliver that on programmatic mechanisms. However, getting that in place is keeping it real. So what I would say is this foundational thinking is how are you building and capturing first-party data? And a lot of the work we're doing at the moment is making sure we're building the right infrastructure to capture that, because if you capture that, you can utilize it, and then you can do it in lots of interesting ways, whether that's personalization, marketing, fan engagement, it doesn't matter. But that's where the rights holders who are being smart and challenging are understanding that role within the ecosystem. I think that's a really important point to call out.
And Ben, so what are, in this vision of being able to have sort of instant, responsive, insightful stuff, that does sound like hard. What are the challenges about that? And you know, what are the have you faced any problems about that?
Yeah,
and how have you overcome those problems?
Yeah, so I think there's like multiple steps to that process, right? I mentioned earlier that it's the most important thing is being there before the moments happen, right? So the challenge is not the ability, like with obviously technology now, like the challenge is not having those moments clipped up. We have our video editing tools and our publishing tools and everything else there and ready. So actually the bigger challenge is making sure that you have the planning in place to know that those moments are probably going to happen. And when they do, if you miss them, excuse my French, you're fucked, right? Because they are moments that have been missed. And I can give you so many examples from Ball League Season 1 where, like, talking about cultural moments, so one of our players that actually scored the first goal ever in Baller League, he's a player that's fairly well followed on social media. He did dance. 12 weeks later, we sold out the O2 Arena and Will Smith turned up and ended up doing the same dance within 12 weeks.
I saw that in tradition. I saw that in the Metro newspaper.
Yeah, correct. So
they even reached into boring old media that I can.
And now the really unique thing about that moment was 12 weeks earlier when he did that dance, our head of social media paired it with a song. And he paired it with a song that featured this player's name in it. And ever since then, if you look at this online, you've had Micah Richards storming our pitch to it. We've had videos sent in from Australia. We've had Premier League players do it pitch side. We've had Championship footballers do it when they score in the Championship. And we've had Will Smith do it, right? So the challenge is not capturing the moment. It's about making sure you have a medium through which those moments can be captured, i.e. putting all the right kind of building blocks in place and then knowing how that is going to go viral, and therefore how you are going to be in the culture. And I used the Pepsi example earlier, right? Our football shirts. You go out on the street now, people are wearing retro football shirts to be in the culture. So we made sure that with the design of our kits, as an example, they're cool. They're things that kids are going to want to wear. They're shirts that adults are going to want to wear. So I think the bigger challenge is just knowing what moments to be in, and then making sure that you're there when they happen. Everything else takes care of itself.
Well, I think that's... I'm afraid we're out of time. So I'd just like to say thank you very much. We started this by talking about Baller League as a sort of jumpers for goalposts sort of thing. We sort of end with a sort of Boy Scout thing of always be prepared. And I think what's fascinating, if you're going to live in culture at the speed of culture, then you have to have the right tech and be prepared to do that. And gents, we're really grateful for you coming on stage, and I understand we're slightly over time now, but I'm sure that many of you will have questions. The guys are going to be over by the bar in the Lumen area there, and if you have any questions for them there, there's so much more that we can talk about, and they'll be there to talk about. Guys, thank you so much for your time, and a big round of applause, guys, for Adam and Ben. Thanks very much.